So let's tackle some word problems. Oftentimes you can tell if a word problem is supposed to be addition or subtraction, but if it's a multiplication or a division problem, it's really hard for people to tell. All right, so we've come up with some strategies in class to tell, and let's go over a couple of those right now. Reading this problem, it says, Emery is wrapping presents for his mom's birthday party. He has 6 feet of ribbon to use. I want to underline these numbers so I can keep track of them. It says each present takes 1.5 feet of ribbon, so there's another number. And also there's another number here that we might not see. It's this word right here, each. Right, so those 3 numbers tell me that I should probably set up a proportion. All right, I've got 3 numbers, and I'm trying to find another one. Right, I'm going to underline, I'm going to put a box around this. This is the question. How many presents can he wrap? I'm trying to find that missing number. Right, so setting up a proportion should look something like this. Right, I know that one present, right, I'll write one present, takes 1 1/2 feet of ribbon. Right, and if I had another one present, then I would know he'd need another 1.5 feet. And that's what I'm trying to figure out here. How many presents can he wrap? Well, I could say another 1 present is another 1.5 feet. But this isn't really going to tell me when I'm going to run out. Right? I don't know how many 1.5 feet I'm going to need. Right? So I don't know that. Right? So that's why we use a proportion. Instead of just kind of keep adding them up and seeing when I run out, I'm going to use a proportion. Right? So I'm going to say that I know, right? I know that one present takes 2.5 feet. I'm also going to say, I wonder, and this is, I'm going to write down what I'm trying to find out. How many presents, right? And presents is on the top in the I know ratio, so I'm going to write question mark. It's supposed to be a question mark presents. I wonder how many presents I could wrap if I had 6 feet. And these things are called proportionate. They're like equivalent fractions, right? The only problem is one of my numbers is missing. So I have to figure out, right? I'm going to say, how many times, right? And I'm going to think to myself, okay, 1.5 feet times what equals 6? And here's the deal. I don't know. That is a missing multiplier. And you probably remember from the very beginning of class that if you're missing one of the multipliers, this is a multiplication problem with one of the things missing, then you have to divide to find the answer. Right? So what am I going to divide here? Well, I'm going to go back to the problem. I can even draw it out here. He has 6 feet of ribbon, and he's cutting them to make presents. So what's getting cut up here? What is it? Is it the ribbon that's being cut, or is it the 1.5 feet sections that he's going to wrap on the presents? Well, it's the ribbon that's being cut, right? Maybe I should use a different color here. I'm going to cut the ribbon, right? I'm cutting up this long piece of ribbon to wrap the presents. So that means that 6 feet is going to be cut up. It's going to be divided by, and the other number is 1.5. And that will give me the missing multiplier, right? So whenever you don't know the factor, and this is in your notebook, whenever you don't know the factor, you don't know what you're going to multiply by, that means you're going to need to divide to figure it out, the missing multiplier problem. All right, so let's see if we can do this real quick. I'm going to run out of space, but it's not that hard. So I'm going to write this as 6 over 1, and I'm going to write this as a fraction. That would be 3 halves, right? 3 halves, 3 halves. I'm going to stay flip, so 6 over 1 times 2 over 3, and I'm going to simplify before I multiply. That's going to become a 2, that's going to become a 1, and I'm going to end up with 4. That is the missing factor. I'm going to write it in here right now. 4. 4. Right? So 1.5 times 4 equals 6 feet. We found that by dividing. Right? We found that missing factor by dividing. And if you don't know, go back and look at some other videos about division, okay? Anyway, so let's do it now. 1 present times 4 is 4 presents. The answer is 4 presents. All right, let's try another one. Lila's making origami cranes in Japanese class. She timed herself to figure out that she can make each crane in 1/2 minutes. She spends 10 minutes making cranes. How many can she make? So I'm going to do that same thing again. I know that she can make each, that's 1, so I'm going to even write that, 1 crane, so I don't forget that down, in 1/2 minutes. Right? That's a fact, is telling me right there, 1 crane, 1.5 minutes. If she spends 10 minutes making cranes, how many can she make? How many can she make? So I'm wondering, how many can she make? Is it how many minutes or how many cranes? Oh, I can read this. It's how many cranes. How many cranes can she make? In how long? How many minutes? It says right there, 10 minutes. 10 minutes. So here I am again. 1 crane, 1.5 minutes times something equals 10. Times something equals 10. And if you don't know what that something is, how many half minutes equal 10, then you have to use division to find the missing factor, So what am I going to divide? What's being cut up here? Well, it's and this is a little bit awkward, right, to think about, but it's the amount of minutes. Her time is being cut up into little small pieces, right? She's got 10 minutes, and she wants to break them into groups of 1/2. I'm going to run out of room again. Give myself some more space. I have 10 minutes, and I want to break them into groups of 1/2 to see how many half minutes, right? How many little sections of time do I have to make those cranes? And that will tell me how many cranes I can make. So let's write this as 10 over 1. Let's flip this over. Let's flip this over. Becomes 2 over 1. Right? And those little flip symbols are getting in the way. Right? So we're flipping. We stay flip, flip. And what's going to happen here? 10 times 2 is 20. So 10 divided into half-minute chunks equals 20. And that kind of makes sense now that you think about it, right? I mean, how many half minutes are in 10? And that is 20. So our missing factor was 20. 1 times 20, of course, makes 20 cranes. She can answer 20 cranes. So setting up those proportions is really going to help you. Okay. The last thing I want to say is you can't set up the proportions unless you can make sense of what you're reading. Just like in your language arts class, you're going to make a movie in your head. Does what you read match the movie, right? And sometimes, just like I drew with the present and the ribbon, it's worth writing them out, right? So I can say, easy, okay, so there's 1 minute. How many cranes does she make? 2, because that's half a minute, half a minute. There's another minute. She makes 2 more cranes. There's another minute. She makes 2 more cranes. There's another minute. She makes 2 more cranes. You could probably figure out the answer just by doing this. There's another minute. She makes 2 more cranes. But I'm tired of drawing boxes already. It's just faster to do the math in a way, right? So you think, oh, each minute is 2 cranes. If there were 10 of these, that would be another 2 cranes, another 2 cranes. If she did this 10 times, you could say, well, that's like 10 times 2. There it is, 20 cranes. So envision, read it, understand what's happening. And that'll help you set up the proportion, and it may help you set up, a little diagram that will help too. Right? So understanding your reading, very, very important. All right, see you later.